The People's Deputy President. Welcome, Your Excellency. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Please be seated. Fellow Kenyans and the further state, the Democracy for the Citizens Party, DCP, to present the 2026-2027 alternative budget for consideration by the people of Kenya. The title of this presentation is "A Government Waging an Economic War Against Its People." Fellow Kenyans, great nations and great economies are built through strategic and visionary leadership, intentional production, ethical and disciplined leadership, institutional stability, industrialization, and a collective national purpose. When these key factors lack in a nation, a country fails. Why do I say this? The government of Mr. William Ruto will present the budget estimates for the next financial year on Thursday, 11th June 2026. Later on, the Finance Bill 2026/2027 will be tabled to the National Assembly for debate. But what is in this budget and Finance Bill for Wanjiku? Both are a twin evil. The Finance Bill 2026 is taxing Kenyans into poverty. It is a killer and a threat to common mwananchi. It will break households while stifling the freedom of Kenyans and violating the very soul of our nation. The Constitution of Kenya 2010. It is a budget for a 50 regime billionaires and 1 trillionaire out of our sweat and blood. The two documents are not a rescue plan for the common mwananchi, but an increased tax burden on workers, consumers, farmers, businesses, manufacturers, SMEs, border operators, mama mbogas, and the youth who are the very soul of our nation. In my remarks, I will demonstrate how this is so. We, the Democracy for the Citizens Party, DCP, affirm that a national budget must be a plan for prosperity, a blueprint for opportunity, and a statement that gives priority to the people and not a cake for a few elites. We strongly hold that a people-centered budget must give priority to affordable food, access to education, affordable health care, affordable farm inputs, support small and medium enterprises, and support household savings and expand opportunities for our young people. Additionally, it must fully adhere to the Constitution of Kenya, and in particular Articles 220 and 221 on public participation. This budget does none of this. In fact, it does the exact opposite by violating the Constitution and in fact waging a terrifying economic war. The budget estimates before us at Kenya shillings 4.82 trillion is completely out of touch with Wanjiku. The projected revenue is about Kenya shillings 3.67 trillion, leaving a deficit of Kenya shillings 1.144 trillion. We have a clueless regime led by an elite cabal that continues to vomit on our feet and display their ill-gotten wealth. They are presenting to us, the people of Kenya, a budget with an intention to borrow Kenya shillings 3.13 billion per day. This, in simple terms, translates to an average borrowing spree of Kenya shillings 125 million per hour. This is the money you see roofing State House, traveling overseas in luxurious jets, being dished at State House to bribe voters, and in EUDA campaign lorries, while the balances are blown in helicopters, in needless flights and charters. What if this money was channeled to our schools, hospitals, and road infrastructure to achieve a multiplier effect in the economy? Reports have shown that this government steals Kenya shillings 3 billion per day. Ironically, the same government borrows 3.14 billion per day. Why borrow to steal? Why can't you even steal less if at all you have to? What a regime. But first, we pose a fundamental question and state an undeniable fact. Over the last 4 years, the Ruto regime has taxed and illegally levied hardworking Kenyans a whopping 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings. Further, they have borrowed a whole 4.2 trillion Kenya shillings. Please show us the corresponding development projects. Where is the impact on Wanjiko? Fellow Kenyans, further, our country is trapped in a dangerous borrowing cycle. The Grand Coalition government under the late President Mwai Kibaki, the greatest president of our time, borrowed Kenya shillings 1.3 trillion in 10 years. The Jubilee government under President Uhuru Kenyatta borrowed 6.7 trillion in 10 years. This regime, a one-man show, has borrowed 4.2 trillion in 3 years. Today, as we speak, our public debt stands at 13 trillion Kenya shillings. The debt to GDP ratio is at 72.4%, which is far beyond the legal ceiling set by the Public Finance Management Act 2023. Ordinarily, a ratio of 55% debt to the GDP should guide fiscal restraint. But more troubling is the fact that interest on debt is currently at 1.3 trillion Kenya shillings per year. This is 79% of our revenue. The interest on debt has become the largest consumer of public revenue. In practical terms, the government is working first for leaders, then for the people, and we, the people of Kenya, are on our own. Dear Kenyans, I have been on record several times on the crisis our nation is in. Out of the 4.2 trillion Kenya shillings borrowed recklessly by this regime, only Kenya shillings 1.9 trillion went to the development expenditure. This is in direct contravention of Article 211 Constitution of Kenya. It also contravenes Section 152C of the PMF Act that prohibits the government from borrowing for recurrent expenditures. What kind of a household borrows a loan from a bank to buy food? To make the matters worse, the budget statement to be read next week proposes to borrow an additional 1.114 trillion Kenya shillings. Out of this, only 700 billion Kenya shillings will be spent on development. Where is the Kenya shillings 400 billion? This is budgeted corruption. In the financial year 2024-25, the government targeted to raise 2.7